I'll give everybody about 30 seconds to grab a seat, grab some coffee.
Grab a seat.
At the end of last semester, Chancellor Dworkin and I had a discussion, and we realized that it had been a year really since the announcement of unification, and we both felt that it was really a good time for the two of us to get in front of everyone again. And in particular to answer questions. We are distinctly aware of the fact that people have perceptions about, what is happening, what isn't happening, what could happen, what couldn't happen, what should happen, what probably should not happen. And we think that the best way to help resolve uncertainty is to come before you and answer questions that you might have. We're going to start with just kind of a very brief presentation to let you know a little bit about timeline and some recent information that Chancellor Dworkin and I received when we visited the Higher Learning Commission about 2 weeks ago. So with that, do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you very much. I feel like I'm wearing a wire here. I don't know why that is. So if some FBI guys come in, you'll know why. So again, my name is Jim Dworkin. What Chancellor Keon said is exactly right. We've been working really hard on this, and it's been about a year ago in February that we went to the Board of Trustees and brought up this idea of unification. And so this is a check today. We'll give you some information and answer any questions. We did this yesterday at the PNC campus and went about an hour and a half, had a lot of questions. And so we'll give a brief few PowerPoint slides and then take your questions. So if you can see on one of these boards, the unification update, we have the big unification committee, and we also have the senior leadership team, and we have meetings now scheduled through June of 2016. You can think of it this way. We've been going for 12 months on this process, and we have 17 months to go. So we're not quite halfway through, but we're making a lot of good progress. We have a lot of subcommittees that are meeting. We just recently, I don't know, did we put out the mascot? It's already out. So we've just appointed a mascot committee to come up with the idea for a mascot for the new PNW, which I think should be kind of fun. August 1st is the date. Well, you'll see this in a minute, but we need to put in a application to the Higher Learning Commission, and then also we have a search underway for the next Vice Chancellor for Information Services. Personally, sorry to see Sarah Howard leaving. I've enjoyed working with her, but I know how these things work, and so we're looking forward to continue to work with her, and then we'll welcome the new person. I don't have the clicker. Click. So here's the unification timeline update. I've already mentioned the first thing was February of 2014. We talked about this for the first time. Tom and I went to the Higher Learning Commission in July of 2014 to talk about where we were, and then we also went in September to meet with Commissioner Lubbers. We need also approval from the, or at least support from the Indiana Commission for Higher Education, which we have a letter from her, so that's doing great. And then just about maybe 10, 12 days ago, we went back to the HLC and had a really good meeting with a couple people there, just basically telling them where we're at. And as you can see, August 1, 2015 is the application submission date. So basically, we're on mark to submit our application for the merger of the two campuses by August the 1st. Now, many people in this room are doing a lot of hard work on it. A lot of stuff is in the academic affairs area, and the two vice chancellors up front Karen and Peggy have been leading the charge in that area, and I can just tell you that I felt very lucky to have somebody like Karen work with me at PNC for the last several years, and really good in this area, knows a lot. And I feel the same way about Peggy. She's doing a wonderful job, and so we got a lot of good people leading the charge. And so I can guarantee that we'll have this done by August the 1st. I'll finish this last one, then I'll let Tom talk for a little bit. In October of 2015, there will be a 2-person fact-finding visit to both campuses. They come for a day and a half. And, a fact finder is find the facts. We find that you've done this. We find that you're, merged. We find that you have this person in this job, whatever, and they'll see how we're doing in terms of what we said we were going to do. And then they have 2 reports. One's called a staff summary report, and the other one is called a fact-finding team report. So that will occur approximately a couple months after we turn in the application.
The fact-finding report is really a way for the Higher Learning Commission to be able to go to the board and let the board know that the information that is in the application is accurate. On February of next year, our expectation is that the board would then vote on our application. Assuming that the application is approved, we were told that it's likely that on March 1st a letter would come out letting us know that the unification was approved by the Higher Learning Commission Board, and that the 2 chancellors would have 30 days to respond to that letter. Now, this is a little bit different than what we understood last summer, and it's maybe a little bit different in terms of what you may have heard in the past. But specifically, once we respond to that letter, they then technically see us as merged, even though we're setting a July 1st date. So in their minds, by March 30th of next year, we will have merged. Now, there's some good pieces to that because our marketing people, for example, have been running around wildly asking us about when can we change signs, do we have to wait until July 1st, a number of different pieces that we know need to occur can occur sometime between April 1st and July 1st and not be problematic to the Higher Learning Commission. So after that, they have a 6-month visit. Their sense was that they would certainly want to visit while campus is in session. So it would be very likely that they would visit in September or very early October, again, just to ensure that what we said we were going to do, we are doing. And then the first comprehensive visit would come 5 years later. And as many of you know, and as some of you don't know, we'll be using the standard pathway as the process that we'll be working with the Higher Learning Commission.
Okay, let's go on to the next slide. So basically, this is called late-breaking news. I wish I could tell you that the Cincinnati Reds have just hired a new good outfielder, but that would be more interesting. But this is late-breaking news about the unification. When we went up to that didn't work very well. Nobody's here in baseball now. But when we went up to see the people at the Higher Learning Commission, we asked about just the kind of thing Tom was just talking about, that what kind of language can we use in our marketing and our branding materials. And so basically they said, yeah, give us a proposal. So basically, the first one, we can use this language. Pending the approval of the Higher Learning Commission, Purdue University Northwest will be established through the unification of Purdue University Calumet and Purdue University North Central. So you can see that in materials about the students, because we should tell students the truth. You know, if they apply to Purdue Cal next year, they ought to know that the year after it's going to be Purdue Northwest. And if they apply to Purdue North Central next year, they ought to know the year after is going to be Purdue Northwest. Same way for athletics. We had I see your athletic director there. He's doing a really good job too, by the way. I've been impressed with his work. Late breaking news on athletics is that we can use this language. As of July 2016, all student athletes and recruited athletes at Purdue North Central and Purdue Calumet should note that as of fall 2016, they will compete as one team per sport for Purdue Northwest, pending approval of the Higher Learning Commission. That's the big deal, pending approval. So academic year 2015-2016 will be the final year in which we'll have one team on each campus for those sports where we each currently have our own separate teams. So for instance, we each have a golf team, we each have a baseball team now. So Tom and I both thought it would be only fair as we're recruiting students now, we have to tell them, you know, if you come to Purdue Cal next year on the golf team, it'll be a Purdue Cal golf team, but in 2016, 2017, it'll be a Purdue Northwest golf team. And the same with baseball, and the same with the other sports where we both have sports. And so that is also something that the coaches and we can use on promotional materials and things like that. So I think that's really important. That's going to be very helpful because that was something that was out there just hanging. What are we going to tell people? And so basically every speech I give now, anybody asks me, or I'll just tell them that, you know, we will be able to tell this to our students who could want to come here and be athletes. And you know, the final thing is, you know, I didn't say this earlier, but July 1, 2016, we will be PNW. There's no question about it. Anybody who has any doubts, put those doubts aside. Both the Chancellor and I are only interested in making the best things happen for Purdue University Northwest, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of getting that going. Oh yes, this one, I might talk about this one too. In trying to show the impact of a larger PNW, I put this data together. I didn't make this up, I took it out of the annual report, the financial report from Purdue University, where they have some data on numbers. And so basically, these are the counties that are contiguous to our campuses. And what I did was I took those counties where there were more people in the county attending PUC and PNC compared to those attending West Lafayette. So if you look at Lake County, where we're at now, that shows that in fall of 2013, there were 1,300 students who had a Lake County address who were attending Purdue Cal, probably, and some at Purdue North Central, attending West Lafayette. And there were 7,101 who were attending Purdue Cal or Purdue North Central, probably many more at Purdue Cal, because you guys are in Lake County. So 84.5% is the percentage of students that from Lake County who go to a Purdue campus that go here or to PNC. In the same way, you can see that in LaPorte County, we pretty much own LaPorte County, 90%. Porter County, between the two of us, 84%. And the weighted average is about 84.2%. And so I think without even counting some of the other counties where we do get students from, we make up about 18% of the Purdue undergraduate total. And if you also would include Purdue Fort Wayne in there, we're with the regional campuses, we're coming up on about 50% of the undergraduate total. So we'll have a big impact, and there's a lot of things that Tom and I could both say about the benefits of being larger.
For those of you who may have been following what has happened with the Unification Committee on the Unification website, one of the things you might note is that there was a desire last semester to try to come up with a mission statement and a vision statement for Purdue Northwest. In those discussions, it became clear that the committee members felt like it would be good for us to use some consultants to facilitate that. So we hired 2 consultants out of Chicago that came down, and they met with individuals on each campus, spent time with them, collected a lot of information, condensed some of that information, and brought it to the Unification Committee. The last Unification Committee meeting, for the most part, was spent working with the consultants on what the mission statement should actually say and what the vision statement should say. Upon completion of that meeting, with consensus of the group, the two business deans from Calumet and North Central agreed to review in final detail the mission and vision statement, primarily for editing as opposed to changing content. So what you see here is the outcome for that mission and vision statement. This is the Unification website. If you're not familiar with it, you can get to it from either campus's website, and it has a lot of information, a tremendous amount of information. However, there are obviously questions that people would have that may or may not be on the website, and so as promised, we would like to spend the remainder of any time we spend together answering questions that you may have. We have Nolan and Justin helping us with microphones. We're going to ask you to use the mic, even though we might be able to hear you. This is being saved digitally, and to optimize for those people who might listen to it later, if you would use the microphone to ask your question, it will help as we save the proceedings digitally. Questions?
He's going to bring you the microphone there.
Thank you. You spoke earlier about the language to be used in recruiting students and student athletes. I assume similar language should also be used in recruiting faculty?
This is a good question, and this came up yesterday. In fact, we had several questions related to recruiting faculty. The two groups, the senior leadership team for this campus and the cabinet from the other campus, meet again, I believe, next Monday. And certainly one of the things on the top of our agenda, we'll be talking about recruiting faculty. One piece will be what language will be used for faculty. Specifically, what will faculty be told? And there's a lot of component parts to this, as we found out yesterday from the number of questions that rolled off this initial question. One question that came up yesterday was, will people be expected to teach on one campus or on both campuses, or how is that going to work? Our perception has been that, if you are hired for a specific campus, you will know that when you're hired, and you will teach on that campus. Sometime in the future, we may decide that a particular discipline would feel benefited by hiring somebody into maybe a narrower area of expertise that is currently not covered by both campuses, and may at that point in time, advertise looking for someone who would be willing to and would like to teach on both campuses as part of their permanent hiring contract. But at this point in time, the expectation is people would be hired into one or the other.
And I would just like to say that one of the good things about having the meeting yesterday, even though we had been thinking about this, there was questions kind of framed in my mind that we need to put that up at the top of the list, like Chancellor Kean said. We will be talking about it. But yes, that we'll have to definitely work on that. Go ahead.
I hate to sound impatient about this, but my department's conducting a search now. We're going to be having telephone interviews with candidates on Friday, so we have to say something to them.
Well, if my advice to you would be to tell them that, what department are you in? Mathematics. Tell them that you've got a job opening for the Department of Mathematics at Purdue Calumet, and I would say at this time, like the Chancellor just said, there's no expectation they'll be teaching at the Purdue North Central campus. So I'd just say business as usual. I wouldn't make any, but I would tell them certainly that in the future, as of 7/1/16, we'll no longer be called Purdue Calumet. We're going to be called Purdue Northwest, PNW, and it's the combination of the two campuses. And so I would disclose as much, and I would tell them to have a look at the website that Chancellor Keehan just showed you. Does that help?
One important piece, if you looked at the student information that we put up, it all says pending approval by the Higher Learning Commission. So when we do tell people about where we're going and the fact that we plan on merging, we always need to add that caveat that, you know, this is pending approval of the Higher Learning Commission. And although we feel very comfortable about the fact that we're taking two strongly accredited institutions and merging them, that it will happen, for the sake of their board, we should always add pending approval. So likely what you would hear on Monday afternoon after we meet is that you should tell any prospective faculty member or any prospective hire throughout campus that they should be aware of the fact that Purdue University Calumet and Purdue University Northwest is under the process of merging, and that merger will take place pending the approval of the Higher Learning Commission.
You made reference to the Unification website, which does have some information on it, but it does not still contain information about cost increases. There is a link up there which deals with cost savings. This was an issue which was brought up in September or October before the Unification Committee, and I want to know, there are some increases of which we're well aware of faculty and staff traveling between campuses, which are increasing costs. At any point, are those going to be documented, or will we know, or will we not be made available? Will we not be able to see access to those increases in costs as a result of the merger?
Want to try it?
Well, I would say that, you know, any actual costs will be recorded and will be provided on the website. If you look at the year-end close, there were actual costs that were incurred in the last fiscal year, and they were appropriately recorded on the website. What we probably haven't done is a year-to-date posting of actual costs that we know have occurred, and we can attempt to try to keep that updated monthly as we get monthly statements from the accounting office in West Lafayette.
At the Unification announcement, both of you had said that while there was an acknowledgement there wasn't faculty input into that decision, there would be going forward. Yet we see evidence that there isn't faculty input. At what point are we going to see meaningful faculty input into decisions that are going to affect faculty, staff, the community of the campuses?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the question, but secondly, I would totally disagree with the assertion that there has not been faculty input. I think all you had to do was be at the meeting yesterday at the PNC campus, and it was full of faculty. We had lots of faculty input. Our faculty senate has lots of input into the process. Every time we do any kind of committee, like I was talking about earlier, we put faculty on the committee in response to the questions that were asked yesterday about promotion and tenure, Chancellor Keon gave a great answer and talked about, he values input into this process. And also in terms of the questions yesterday about the structure of the university, he made the same statement. He was very strong about it, and I applaud for what he said. We value faculty input. So I think, when certainly people have a right to ask any question they want, but I'm going to call it out because I don't think there's any data to support the notion that there has been not much faculty input into the decisions we're making.
I might provide some of that data.
Sure.
These are the minutes of the Board of Trustees from September 26th, 2014. Approved, I believe, at the December meeting, covering Chancellor Keon's remarks. Quote, he outlined the savings thus far from the administrative unification and said the administrations had begun to consider ways in which to prudently reinvest the savings. No mention of faculty input or staff input. The administrations were going to consider ways in which to prudently reinvest the savings. One of the things which came up during the process of the merger was that there would be faculty input into how to reinvest savings. To date, I have seen no committee or heard of no structure set up in which there will be faculty input into how to reinvest the savings. Is such a committee in existence? Will one be formed, or will this be an administrative decision?
Well, I should let you take that because he's quoting from your remarks.
Okay.
But I'm actually very happy to answer that, but I'll give you a shot.
I would say to this point, there have been no decisions made with respect to reinvesting any amounts. My expectation is that, any major decisions would at least go to the Unification Committee. But as all of you know in this room, I created a university-wide budget advisory committee that has sat this year and listened to all of the possible changes that could occur in our budget for next year. There were discussion on a number of those pieces. That discussion was integrated into where we're going for next year's budget. So I certainly would be very comfortable in forming a committee that would have representation of faculty and administration and staff to take a close look at the reinvestment of those funds. There are some issues that are really important with respect to the reinvestment of those funds. For example, a faculty administrative committee has been formed to take a look at faculty salaries across the two campuses relative to national norms. And at some point in time, as we're going to make adjustments in salaries, we have to decide where that money should come from. Should that money come from normal operations of the university, or should it come out of savings? That is a decision that, I think we should have input from a much broader group than just the administrative staff in terms of making those types of decisions. So my expectation is that, when we get to a point where we're thinking about actual changes, we will have input from a vast group of representation of all the governance areas.
And we said from the very start that we're going to use those savings for faculty purposes and for student purposes, and that's still the plan. And so that's, I agree with what the Chancellor said. And at the appropriate time, we'll have a committee, and we'll have as much input as we need. But eventually somebody's going to have to make some decisions. Do we need another professor in mathematics? How about 2 or 3 in mathematics? You like that. Or do we need, because mathematics has such a large number of students, or do we have, so those decisions have to be made. I think we got one in the back. That's fine.
In regards to the unification of both athletics programs, is there any concern with over exceeding the maximum amount of players per team, and some players would have to be cut?
Well, actually, it depends on the sport, I would guess. I'm not the best expert, although I've done some research on athletics. I don't know that I'm the expert on what the maximum is per each sport. But yes, if we have a sport like baseball where we have two big teams, probably either you're going to have one team that's big, and maybe there might be some possibility of some junior varsity type of approach. But there'll definitely be some changes there in some of those larger sports.
Yeah, I believe that most recently the athletic directors from both campuses are about to start discussions on what the plan would be. Clearly now we understand that what we've handed to the athletic directors is a request for them to move toward a single athletic team in each sport for Purdue Northwest. They have basically 17 months to start working through that plan. Now, when I say they have 17 months to start working through that plan, that's a little bit complicated because starting really this summer, they'll be recruiting for fall of 2016. So actually in 5 months, they need to be together on what the teams will be, how they're going to merge the teams, start talking about who the coaches are that will be recruiting. And part of that discussion probably will center for those sports that have a number of athletes on whether or not, at least in the interim, they would want to have a junior varsity team and a varsity team.
This is on a completely different topic. My question's about Metropolitan University status. I was reading recently that West Lafayette had approved Fort Wayne to go forward to, I guess there's another level of approvals with the commission to get Metropolitan University status, and I was wondering if this is on the horizon for Purdue Northwest.
That actually came up yesterday, and I think basically your question is, I would augment it by saying the final step, I think it has to be a legislative approval. There has to be a law that will make it. But yes, the data that I put together that I showed earlier, that makes a pretty good case that a place like PNW, once it's established, is also a good possibility for a metropolitan university, different metrics. And I think, as Chancellor Keehan was saying yesterday too, that that gives Purdue University the chance to have one main campus and then two big metropolitan universities that would be dynamite throughout the north part of the state, and then we would have basically no regional campuses. So I can see that as a good possibility in the future. Justin's bringing it for you.
This is the question I asked yesterday, and I think I need to ask it again today about metropolitan universities. I'm not sure that everybody knows what that means, so it would be helpful if that could be explained.
It's just a designation that basically is it's a step above, I guess I'd call a regional university. IUPUI is a metropolitan university. There's a little different funding formula. It's more of a research component. I mean, this campus fits in better than Purdue North Central in that designation, given that you've had much more of a background in research than we have had in the past. But when you put two together, I think with the size and everything, it'll make a big difference. And I think there's also a different funding formula from the state, so we have little different metrics as well. And I think it brings a bit of prestige. I was on the committee in 2013 that studied regional campuses, and that was really the big issue. Most of the meetings were held in Fort Wayne, and that was really the big issue. The legislators at Fort Wayne wanted this metropolitan designation. Now, as you said, President Daniels has agreed that that's something he would like to see. And I think it's going to be nothing but a good thing. I think it'll be nice.
You know, one of the things I would say is that this really provides a great opportunity for us. The Commission of Higher Education has outlined what a regional campus is, what it can do, and what it cannot do. It has also outlined a metropolitan university, and then, of course, research-centered universities. However, up until and continuing, right now, there's only one metropolitan university in the state, IUPUI. And quite frankly, I'm not sure that as much thought and work has gone into describing and defining a metropolitan university as has been done with research or regional. You know, it's sort of like the in-between two different types without a lot of specification. So, you know, one of the things we can do proactively as Purdue Northwest is start working with the Commission of Higher Education to come up with a better, more solid definition of what a metropolitan university should be. Personally, you know, I looked at this pretty closely. There are only 5 metropolitan areas within the state that have appropriate populations and appropriate number of job opportunities to ever be considered as metropolitan. Some might argue that there's really 4, but 4 or 5, being generous. You know, and I think that needs to be part of the definition, which I don't think exists right now. You know, how much of a population is a metropolitan population for a metropolitan university? Then the second thing I think we need to proactively work at is that there is a tremendous tie in the literature between comprehensive universities and economic development within population centers. That is, there is no population center in the United States that is flourishing economically that doesn't have a comprehensive university. So a second part of what a metropolitan university should be is a strong partner and developer of economic development for the region. And for the most part, it's bringing skilled individuals into the opportunity of the labor force to be able to attract high-quality businesses. I think that needs to be incorporated in that thinking. Now, the next step beyond that then is, so how comprehensive should an institution be? You know, some of us feel like it should be as comprehensive as offering applied doctoral programs, but not PhDs and not research-centered like we would find in West Lafayette and Bloomington. So one of the things I've learned in my past is that sometimes it's better to be on the ground writing the definition with the powers that be so that you make sure you fit it.
One of the complicating factors when you look at IUPUI as being the only metropolitan university right now, when you compare yourself to IUPUI, they've got a medical school, and that skews everything. All the, you know, if you look, remember Karen and Peggy, the research numbers and things like that. So you have to really, if you looked at IPFW and IUPUI, you would say they don't really look that much alike on the research side. But once you take out the medical school, then you can start delivering on some of those parameters that Chancellor Keon was talking about. So I think that's a good possibility for the future.
Other questions?
Initially, there was some talk about contracting out services, maybe reducing our labor force and going with contract vendors. Is there still talk about doing that?
We never had that discussion that I recall.
No, we've never talked about that that I
Ever.
recall.
Okay, well, like print and mail services and the Student Health Center have been, there's a push being put on right now to privatize those. I'm just wondering if we're going to expand on that.
We're not planning to.
No interest in doing that, really.
One of the contrasts I think we're seeing is that some of the things we're hearing don't line up. For example, the shared vision statement says that Purdue Northwest will promote critical inquiry. And yet in the same meeting, as I happen to have been there, we were told that we all need to get on the same page. And the exact phrase used was, how do we get everybody on the bandwagon? I'm wondering, how do you square getting everybody on the bandwagon with doing what a university does best, which is to promote critical inquiry?
I don't know. Maybe I didn't understand the question, but it sounds like you're mixing up things that don't need to be mixed up. So when I think of critical inquiry, I think of, I was at West Lafayette, and I was a researcher in the Cranert School for many years, and anybody in the Cranert School could do any kind of critical inquiry or any kind of research they wanted to do. Nobody told me I couldn't do research on economics of baseball players' labor markets, and so there's never been any, I can't think of anybody who's ever said anything on either of the campuses that we can't have critical inquiry into the kinds of things we want to do research on. So then you took that and you sort of combined that with everybody being on the same page. That's sort of kind of awkward because I don't really understand what you're trying to do there. But when we say everybody on the same page, at least the way I look at that is we like people to think that it's a good idea to have this merger of Purdue North Central and Purdue Cal, and we'd like for people to kind of go along with it, but there's no reason why anybody in this room on any particular issue you want to talk about can't bring up a question or something that you disagree with. And a lot of people have been doing that. They did that yesterday. And, the Chancellor and I agree on lots of things, but there's stuff we don't agree on. But in my field, there's always ways that you can agree to disagree and then get along. And so that's what we mean by being on the same page. As I've said earlier today, by July 1, 2016, we are going to be Purdue Northwest. And whether people like it or not, it's going to happen. But what that has to do with the suppressing of critical inquiry sort of leaves me a bit befuddled.
I can clarify then. The critical inquiry I'm looking for is this a good idea? To my knowledge, there has never been an analysis of the financial or academic impact of the merger. Do you have any data on that you could provide? Are there plans to conduct such a critical inquiry of the financial and economic impact of the merger on the campuses?
I'll let you take that one.
Yeah. Well, the truth of the matter is the train has left the station. The Board of Trustees said we will merge, and we are merging. Amy?
I've had a lot of people ask about the athletics and when we merge and become all one team. Where will the games be? Will they be played here? Will they be played at North Central?
All of those decisions are yet to be made. Earlier in an answer to a question, I had said that the two athletic directors are going to just start initial discussions right now. Where we have joint opportunities for the ability to host teams, it's likely that we'll play on both campuses. Knowing most athletes and most athletic directors, they're probably going to take what they perceive as the best quality facilities to be the one that they play the most in. That's just a thought about what might happen, but the decision hasn't been made, except that, it is clear that we will be playing at both locations for some sports. and I'm sure, as I said, they'll try to pick the best athletic facilities when they're making those choices.
So we have great facilities, Amy. You know, we at PNC, the only website I look at more than the one that was up here on the board earlier is the one with the building going up. And so that's going to be a great site for basketball and volleyball. But then, you know, we've got some great facilities here, and there's Dowling Park. And actually, the weather pattern, if you think about baseball, the weather patterns can be weird. You know, sometimes we have a home game scheduled, and if the other team is 20 miles away, their field might be in good shape and ours might not be. So I could see that in the future. You might have a baseball game scheduled here, and your field may be unplayable, and our field may be good, or vice versa. So I think having that flexibility is good, and all those nice facilities will help, number one, attract students. It also will help retain students, and I think also you'll see that there'll be a lot more interest in the athletic programs once they're brought together like that.
I was just wondering, is there any plans for the Peregrine Express to have a route to North Central, like for meetings or athletes? Or...
The bus thing you're talking about?
Right.
Okay. Well, I'll talk a little, and then you probably should finish it up. So at the Purdue North Central campus, we just started a triangle transit route just within LaPorte County based on some great grant money. Vice Chancellor Turner's been like the guru of that. If there was ever a situation where something could have gone wrong and shouldn't have happened, this was it. But he really made it come together, so I give him a lot of credit. But so now that brings into play the possibility in the future of, you know, having transportation between the two campuses. And I think if you have vision, that's something that is possible. Although we're not, you know, students ask all the time, do we have to go back and forth between the campuses? And the plan is no, but there might be some interest in the future of people going between the campuses. So I think it's an open question that needs to be studied.
Yeah, one of the things that's somewhat interesting, and I think that this is up on the Unification website, is taking a look at where the current students live that are either in attendance here or attendance at the North Central campus. And what you find out, and this is probably not surprising, that the vast majority of the students who are from Northwest Indiana live right between the two. You know, and so it's kind of equidistance from Crown Point to Westville and Crown Point to Hammond. So when you look at that, one of the things that you then start to think about is how much will a bus service be used? Would you drive from Crown Point to Hammond to take a bus to North Central? You know, very unlikely. The reverse is true as well. Now, that said, you know, we'll monitor this closely, and there may be times that, you know, for special events or some other kinds of activities, you know, we'll definitely want to have some kind of service available. So we will monitor it closely and, you know, try to do something that's optimum for students and faculty.
The other side of the room. I'm tilting to the right too much. I want to tilt over to the left.
Hi, I'm a faculty member, and one of my concerns, and it's a big concern of people in my field, is the prevalence and expansion of dual credit. And I was wondering if in the future there might be more of a comprehensive study of where we've been and where we're going with a lot of hopefully significant faculty input.
So this is one area where we may have a little bit of a disagreement. And let me just give you my take on it, and then I'll let the Chancellor get the final word on this. Dual credit is the way the state is going. The Commission likes this. It's a way for students in high school to earn credits and be able to graduate in 3 and 4 years. Our experience with dual credit has been very good. We've had we're in about 43 different schools, and we are accredited by NACEP, which is not very common. And also the data for the students that come to PNC who have taken dual credit, they tend to have higher grade point averages, not only in high school, but also when they get to PNC. So we've been very satisfied with the dual credit, and actually it's increased the number of people that have the ability to be on track and graduate in 4 years. Having said that, we have some issues there. We have to be very careful that the right instructors in the high schools teach the classes. We work very carefully on that, and I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody call me up and say, we can't offer that class because, the person, a superintendent might call me or a principal, well, we can't certify somebody to teach the class who doesn't meet the NACIP accreditation standards. So I think dual credit's been pretty good. We got a grant from who did we get our grant from? We got a grant from the Commission for Higher Education. That's where I like to have these people here because when I forget these, you get a little older, you forget some things. And basically it's helped us promote teaching skills online for those people who are going to, we're trying to help people get certified to teach those classes. So I have a very high regard for dual credit. That'd be my thought. And for the future, I think it's important that we continue that because that's something that we've actually had, Steve Turner can tell you this, we've had quite a bit of money going to our campus because of the dual credits that we've offered. I don't know if you want to say anything different or...
What I would say is this. I talked earlier about how we could proactively work on the definition of metropolitan university. This is an area where I think faculty really need to step up, pay attention, and work with the Commission of Higher Education on what dual credit means, what it should look like, and what impact that it has on the universities as well as on the young people that are currently engaged. The truth of the matter is that this is not unique to Indiana. I think it's probably stronger in the Midwest than on either coast. But it is strong and is something, if you think about it in terms of a pendulum, is still on the swing up with nothing pulling back at it. So, I think that serious inquiry needs to be given to all of the aspects of dual credit. And quite frankly, I just think it's something that hasn't been looked at, very carefully. Likewise, Common Core, which the state of Indiana dropped, is a nationally debated issue. Whether, there should be Common Core, or whether federal money should be dependent on whether the universities have gotten engaged with Common Core. Common Core, was developed by some academics in conjunction with legislators. But I'm not sure that it has had, the serious research attached to it that needs to be accomplished to truly say, everybody should have Common Core. And as a result, Common Core has become, a political fireball with, in the Republican side, Jeb Bush on the other side of most of the other candidates. And again, to illustrate that, our state dropped it to show how political an issue it is as opposed to an issue that relates to individual performance and success in higher education. We need people doing scholarship on all of these issues to show what kind of an impact does it have?
Professor, I don't know if I answered your question very well on dual credit, but I would say that there are also faculty members at the PNC campus that are very concerned about dual credit. And I think with the work with the two the provost and the vice chancellor are doing, we can work this out. We do it differently on the two campuses, but I think we can come to some way to make this work well.
I want to thank you, and hopefully in the future there can be more faculty input. I did serve on the Commission for Higher Education when this was being germinated. After my term, it was mandated by the state legislature, so I was kind of involved in the aftermath. I don't think dual credit in itself is a bad thing. I think there are some benefits. But I do think that faculty, again, a lot of the decision, the discussion, the debate takes place at the highest levels, even outside of the university system. But faculty have a lot to add to this. There's a value that we can bring to the discussion. So hopefully we can do that in the future.
Yes, well, thank you, and I appreciate that, and that's something we probably both didn't talk about, but, you know, the two vice chancellors for academic affairs are working with groups of faculty on defining what dual credit will be and how it will function for Purdue Northwest. And, you know, I'm sure if you'd like to get engaged with that activity, I know you were on the Commission of Higher Education at that time. I'm sure they'd be glad to.
You sound like you'd be a good person to get involved with it. Thank you for the question.
Look, to go back to the question I had earlier, in which I asked about the economic and academic impact of the merger, and what it sounded like was Chancellor Keon saying that there's no need to assess that impact. That seems a little disconcerting to me. Would you care to clarify whether or not we should or should not be looking at the economic and academic impact of the merger on the campuses?
We should.
Are we doing so?
Well,
we haven't merged.
it seems to me that every report I read shows that he talked about it earlier about the places where there's a college campus leads to economic development. You know, the unemployment rate for somebody who's with a college degree is like 2.8%, very unlikely to be unemployed. And at the other end, where people are just without high school diploma, it's about 9%. So yes, there's a huge economic impact of universities. And the other thing is most of our graduates at Purdue North Central, and I think probably the same is true for Purdue Cal, although I don't know the exact numbers, stay right here in the area. And that's why we spend so much time on economic development. So that'd be my answer.
Well, but along those lines, the impetus we were given, which, leaving aside the fact that a lot of people don't seem to believe that the merger was done to save money and to reinvest that money in other places. That seems to be evaporating when, if we go back to the remarks that Chancellor Keon gave in November in front of student groups, in which he said, if we look at the two campuses' line item budgets within the legislature and combine those, we're not going to get that amount because that would put us up on par with Fort Wayne.
That's not exactly what I said. What I said was that we don't know how much we will get. We would love to add the two together and get that amount, but we don't know that that's what's going to happen, is what I said.
If we don't know that amount, how can we project that we're definitely going to be saving money if it's such an unknown? And if that's the case, and if that's our primary rationale for merging, shouldn't we be asking questions as to whether or not the merger is worthwhile if we might actually be losing money by doing so?
I think that's an excellent point. I think we should ask ITCHE what their plan is. We will ask the president to make that request.
Question on the left.
the beginning, so this may have already been addressed. The merger, you said, will take place July 2016. That's a done deal, and I understand that. I think I once heard that there was several steps that we had to go through to get the approval of the Council on Higher Education. What would happen if the two faculty senates can't agree upon a joint senate, or what happens if individual academic departments can't agree upon a joint academic program? Will the merger be instituted just on the level of administration, and then students are still faced with two academic choices, and there's two senates, like upper house and lower house debating everything? What does it actually go through without those steps in place?
Yeah, this is a good question.
Good question.
When we went to the Higher Learning Commission 2 weeks ago, we had several questions. And one of our questions was whether we could be approved and have two faculty senates, and the answer was yes.
Having said that, though, my strong suggestion would be that the faculty senates work hard to try to have one faculty senate. I just think it'll be a lot more efficient. I think because once we're merged, we want to continue to get things done, and if you have to have one body approve and then another body approve, it just doesn't make as much sense to me as to have one senate. And I know that they're working on it. They're working on the Constitution and things like that. But I would definitely say that one senate would be better. But the merger is going to happen on July 1 of 2016, and if people want to have two senates for a while, see how that works, they can do that. But I'm hopeful that people will see the advantages of having one senate.
Well, the academic programs and majors and courses is in the hands of the faculty. Always has been, always will be. If the faculty don't want to change the major, then the major doesn't change. What we will need to think through at that point in time is, are we optimizing our service to students by having two different programs on two different campuses with the same name? We talked about this briefly yesterday. There are two major populations that I think we need to consider, one of which is our students. They're the people who pay tuition. They're the people who would like to get an education. They're the ones that would like to better their lives by attending university. Do they want to attend a university where they can't even decide what the major should look like? Secondly, we have people that want to go to graduate school, and we have people that want to enter the workforce. And do we want to have a university where they might accept students from a program if they graduated from one campus but not the other campus? Or would we want people who would only go recruit students on one campus but not recruit on another campus because the programs were different?
Yeah, and to put it in a finer point, so Tom was a business school dean. I was a business school associate dean. So if we were the program heads here and we had two different business programs, I guarantee I would work with him, he'd work with me, we'd have the same program. We probably want to be accredited by the same agency, and in order to do that, there's some standards there. So it makes a lot of sense to do that, but this is a faculty-driven matter.
Well, to follow that up then, if the faculty at two campuses take a vote and decide that they don't wish to combine any programs, but simply to allow and encourage the administrative unification to occur, you're saying that would be fine? You have no problem with that?
We're saying that that would be something we would have to live with because it's in the hands of the faculty.
I was just wondering, once the academic structure is finalized, is there going to be the same departments on both campuses with one department head for both? and one dean for both, or how is that going to?
Yeah, it's a good question. That came up yesterday. It's sort of a complicated matter. On both campuses right now, I think they're working on some structure documents. I've read the one from the Purdue North Central campus, some suggestions for different structures, or a survey going out. They're getting some input from people. And that's one of the things I was mentioning earlier. Yesterday, the chancellor was talking about how we need to get this input. So no decisions have been made yet, but we want to see what the different options are. Maybe you can look at best practices on other campuses and other places. It may be the fact that there are some colleges we have now that we don't need for the future. Maybe some combinations might occur in terms of the highest level positions you were talking about. So by July 1st, 2016, there'll be one chancellor over both campuses. There should be one vice chancellor over the campuses in each area. We've already got that in 2 cases. As far as deans, I was saying yesterday, I would think, hopefully that there may be maybe there's a situation or two where one dean is about to retire, and we might do it that way. If that other person is the appropriate choice, we may have to have some searches. But I think eventually, we'll have to get to the point where the highest level positions we are having a dean of the college, like we'll have one chancellor. My own situation, many of you may know or may not know, I've been very, very proud to be at Purdue my entire career since January 1st of 1976. It's a long time. You're thinking, that guy's really old, and you're right. The students I know are thinking that. I've been at Purdue North Central for 15 years, and so I'm just really proud of that. And I'm over at retirement age, so last year at the Purdue trustees meeting, they asked me if I would stay on for a couple of years, and so the 17 months that we have to go before unification, that's also 17 months, and in June 30th of 2016, my 2-year extension as chancellor will expire. And so at that time, the trustees make the decision on who the next chancellor is going to be with the president. But it's a good question, and not everything has been decided yet. But I think eventually it would make sense to have one dean of nursing and things like that in the future.
The thing I would say, and I guess yesterday really made me start thinking a little bit more about this. There are really some decisions that need to be addressed by the leadership of both campuses. The first of which is, what do we want to look like on July 1 of 2016? We know that the faculties on both campuses are working on various organizational structures. Can we come up with something that is palatable for faculty and the administration? Can we do that, in early fall of next year so that it could be brought to the Board of Trustees for approval in December? If that's the case, then do we want to sit and wait until July 1 and pick a provost and pick deans and pick department heads? Or in the spring of next year, do we want to start by picking a provost and then picking deans and then picking department heads so that on July 1 a new structure can be in place? We haven't really talked about that yet, but yesterday, somebody asked about the timing part, and in particular the timing with respect to the organizational structure of academic affairs. Because the other structures are in different levels of completeness. The organizational structure for finance and administration has been done for some time and is in place and implemented. Our Vice Chancellor for Information Services has been working with her people in getting input from a lot of different areas. She's shared something with Jim, and she's shared something with me, and it's about ready to be rolled out for completion. A week ago, Friday, or 2 weeks ago, I can't remember the date now, the Vice Chancellors for Enrollment Management and Student Affairs met with the two of us, and we started looking at the structure of enrollment management, and that was agreed upon, sort of, and it's almost ready to be discussed. However, the formal organizational structure in great detail, the two vice chancellors are still working on, but the expectation based on where it is right now, they could have their formal structure available sometime by the end of this semester and implemented, because a lot of pieces of it are implemented already. That leaves academic affairs. We know that the faculty on both campuses are going to be analyzing and looking and giving feedback on various structures. It would be my hope that we can look at those and try to have something by next fall that the faculty and administration agree on makes sense. So again, those temporal decisions are things we need to start spending time talking about, because we don't wake up on the morning of July 1 and everything is done unless we start putting into place all of these decisions. And all of these decisions, also center around things like budget and a number of different areas like that. Some examples, and the people who are on the university budget advisory committee know this, that we've taken a look at fees on both campuses, and we've made a recommendation on fees going forward for Purdue Northwest. And we've also made a preliminary recommendation on tuition increase, knowing that the tuition increase for each campus needs to be different in order to get the tuition to be equalized over the next 2 years. The tuition per credit hour is 1.25% different, which is $2.95. And so we've put together some options like Purdue Calumet having 3% increase over the next 2 years, with Purdue North Central having 0.62 less than 3% the first year and 0.63% less than Purdue Calumet the second year, bringing us to an equalized tuition. So as you can see, there are some decisions that are being made that are getting us to oneness. But, the difficult decisions are all those decisions that involve individuals, involved how students will come out when we're complete.
I just wanted to thank both of you for coming out and doing an open forum here and one at PNC. I think it provides a great opportunity for student, faculty, and staff to ask whatever questions about the merger they might have. So thank you both.
Thank you.
My question is in regards to student organizations, student activities on both campuses. Is there any plans for, let's say, if there's an organization at PNC that's similar to an organization at PNC, for the two to combine and work together on a plan, and also for the two schools' new student orientation leaders to combine and work on coming up with a plan for how to talk with incoming students?
That's a good question, by the way. Since students are going to be primarily attached to one campus or the other, we're going to need to have all kinds of services on both of the campuses. And so there will definitely, if you have 40 clubs now at PNC, and I don't know how many clubs you have here, if you have 80 clubs, those clubs will continue to operate, and they'll continue to have advisors and people work with them. If there is some interest in having some joint club activities between the campuses, that'd be great. I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I just learned this morning, see, at the Purdue North Central campus, we have a Frisbee golf course, and apparently you have one too, disc golf course. And the person who designed the course on our campus is actually an old friend of mine. He's a professional disc golfer, quite the job, a professional disc golfer. But his thought was we could have some ideas of combining, having some tournaments and things like that. So that part of the question I think is pretty clear. We'll continue to have clubs and things on the campuses. I'm meeting later on today with a guy who wants to start a music club on the Purdue North Central campus, and we're happy to do that. Now, the second part of your question, I'm going to let Tom take, because I kind of forgot what it was. Right? Tell you the truth. Do you remember what was the second part of his question? You don't remember either? What was the second part about the? That was about the idea of the orientation leaders.
Yeah, actually, my understanding is that the student affairs staff from both campuses started discussions a week or two ago, and they're talking about, how to take advantage of expertise on each campus to optimize what student affairs should look like for all students, one part of which was new student orientation. So they are clearly working together to, become a single operational student affairs wing of Purdue Northwest, but there must be specific individuals and activities on each campus because service of students is essential and needs to be localized. It's not something that you do by email or post a note on social media to make it happen.
So this occurs to me, this is another great example of where we can work together and have some synergies. For instance, I was thinking of the Martin Luther King event. Like on the Purdue North Central campus, we tend to do a community event on the day, and we have some students there, but it's a community-wide event. I can't tell you how often somebody in LaPorte County says, this is the premier event in LaPorte County. This is really awesome. But my wife Nancy and I, we always think, well, we don't really have very many student events. Well, guess what? Purdue Cal, I looked at their list. You have a lot of stuff during the week, student events. And so this is a great opportunity to merge the best of what we do on both campuses and make this really good for both.
Not a question, just a comment about academic structure. If you're on the faculty, please expect a survey very soon. We're putting the final touches on the survey instrument today.
And we'll be very interested in seeing the results, too.
I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about admissions and recruitment of students and how you're going to attract them and to which campus. Are you going to have different ones on each campus? And depending on the answer to that, I may have a follow-up question.
I would say that at this point in time, we're just putting together a combined marketing strategy. However, we don't have a tactical piece related to that strategy. There are a lot of questions that are unanswered right now. It is very, very likely that in the first year of Purdue Northwest, that recruiting materials will have to be very program-centered and campus-centered because truly my expectation is that there's no way possible we would have all programs be identical by that date. Additionally, our work tactically will need to start this August. And, think about where we are in terms of merging, the academic side. You can see that we're quite distant. The other side of that is that there are some specifics that we're going through to try to align. So we have an alignment plan for admission standards and pieces that, really will make us the same as opposed to looking like two very different entities under the same umbrella.
So it's a work in progress, but a lot of work yet to be done.
I guess my follow-up, or I don't know if follow-up or comment, whatever, is just that I do housing here on this campus, Chancellor Dworkin, just to who I am. And I guess my question is, / comment, if we're recruiting at Purdue North Central and we find a student who's looking for an on-campus living experience, more traditional, more connected to the university. And I know that you guys have the across the street, you guys have a complex, but I've been over there, I've toured, and it's not exactly the same, like connected programmatically as ours is.
Right.
Is that something that we'd be open to as a university if we're recruiting for separate campuses? Maybe saying, hey, just so you know, look at Purdue Cal. They have this type of experience. I just would be curious about that kind of sharing.
I think it's not that. It reminds me of the question people ask me: should I go to West Lafayette or should I go to a smaller campus? Well, it depends what you want, and it's up to you. And to me, once we become Purdue Northwest, and even starting as soon as possible, I think the student should go to whatever campus he or she feels is best suited for their needs. And so I wouldn't refer to it as pilfering or stealing other students. We're all going to be one. So if you find students that want to live by beautiful Westville because of all the wonderful things there, maybe send them there. But I hope that answers your question. But I think we should be pretty open to that. One thing I'm shocked about, and I don't get shocked too easily, but yesterday most of our questions were about a topic that has not even come up today, promotion and tenure. And so I thought I'd tell you that. I had a lot of questions from the faculty about promotion and tenure, and the issue was pretty much are standards going to change and what's going to happen. And we basically, it's kind of complicated because we have lots of stuff going on now. There's a promotion procedure going through West Lafayette. But my statement on that, if anybody wants to know, and then Tom can say his part, people who are hired this year and next year, you have certain standards that you're hired in at, and you should be held to those standards. It's quite possible that in the future, when we start hiring new people for the PNW, that maybe when the two campuses come together and talk about that, there might be a little different standards, but I can't see the standards being that much different. I mean, I just don't see, I'm just saying, you were from math, if you require one paper now, the standards are not going to change. You require 6 papers. It's just not going to happen. So I don't think there'll be that much of a difference. But I'm all about fairness. Chancellor Keon, I've gotten to know him really well. He's all about fairness. And if you're a faculty member and you hear the stir about this, we're going to change the standards and people are going to be treated unfairly, that will not happen. I guarantee that. People will be treated fairly. You'll be, the standards you are told when you come in, those will be the standards that you'll be ultimately judged on.
And the other piece I might add to that, this is another area that really needs further exploration by the senior leadership across both campuses. And again, it comes to this whole notion of time. We know that we're shooting for July 1 of 16, but when do you start aiming and shooting to get there? One of the things that I will propose to the joint leadership when we meet is that we start talking as a group about faculty needs and faculty hires across both campuses, looking not only at, where we have needs, but specifically what are those needs, helping define our expectations of tenure track faculty in terms of qualifications. And after yesterday's meeting, I was interested enough about this that I talked to Audine Fentiman, who heads up really the Intra-Faculty Council, which is the group from all of the Purdue campuses. And I was asking her in that meeting, what kind of discussions did faculty have? And so she kind of relayed to me a number of different issues that were raised by the faculty in talking about this new policy and merging. And one thing that she said that the faculty talked about that interested me, and something that, I'll bring to our group, I guess I'm bringing it to our group right now, but we can talk about it further when we meet, is the idea that to ensure that faculty who are hired, this year and next year are fully knowledgeable with respect to not only the merge, pending HLC approval, that we also provide them in the letter expectations. And if there are departmental documents that are available now that help outline what the expectations are for promotion and tenure, that we make note of that in their offer letter and provide that documentation with their offer letter so that they know exactly where they're being hired and what their expectations should be. I'm hoping that our group thinks that that faculty group made a great suggestion. I thought it was, but we'll be discussing that going forward. And again, as Jim mentioned very early in our Q&A, we want everybody to be as fully knowledgeable of what's happening, particularly people who are new entering our system. New students, new faculty, and new staff. We need to do everything possible that we can to ensure that as we're going through this process of having them become part of Purdue Northwest, that they are fully knowledgeable of what they're getting into. And I know Jim, because of his background, agrees with it.
Definitely do. So it's about 11:30. A lot of good questions. I'll take one more, if it's an easy one.
Okay. As I sit here with my colleagues from the registrar's office, we are concerned about commencement and what does that look for? How does that look in the future? And I guess for me specifically, so if a student is a sophomore, are they graduating from Purdue Calumet or Purdue Northwest? What will they put on their resume? What should they begin to say?
Really good question. So basically, I can tell you the diploma will be the same thing. The diplomas always say Purdue University, awarded in, Hammond, awarded in Westville. So I don't think there'll be any difference there. In terms of where the commencement exercises will be held, we're going to have a brand new facility. So, I'm thinking we'll have separate commencement exercises. We'll have commencement exercise in Westville, and then wherever you have your commencement exercise, we'll do that. What will people tell others where they graduated from? Well, that's a good question. I would say the following. Certainly after July 1 of 2016, you're a PNW graduate. But before that, you may have some, allegiance to Purdue Cal or to Purdue North Central. But the other thing I would say is even once we have the merger, the signs over here will say Purdue Northwest, Calumet campus. and the signs over at PNC will say Purdue Northwest, North Central Campus. So I think people can still have that identification. In the long run, I don't think it makes that much difference, but I'll let you take a shot at that.
No, I think I would have answered the same way.
Okay. Does that help at all? Okay. Thank you very much.
Pending approval of the higher
Pending
learning
approval of the
commission.
Higher Learning Commission, yes. Well, thanks again for everybody for coming, and appreciate your questions.
Thank you.